GoFish for Kids is teaching kids to reach kids for Jesus in a way that is non-threatening to people that are either not Christian or have no background at all as far as that goes. GoFish for Kids actually started in the Florida conference, and it just was a bunch of things that came together for us to start it. We were at a children's ministry conference out at Loma Linda University, and I couldn't remember what year it is, but somebody told me it was 2007. And I know it was near the fall of the year. And then, except it seems to me it had to be later than that, because I don't think it took us 2 years to put this together. But then I'm in a class waiting for the class to start. It hadn't started yet. And some lady's standing at the back door hollering, "Rhoda, Rhoda, come here." And so I went out to see what she wanted. And she is somebody I had just met that weekend at the conference. She's actually from a neighboring conference that shares part of the state. And she says, "You know, what we're learning here this week is so good. We need to teach our kids the same thing that we're learning." I says, "That's a great idea. Did you talk to your children's ministry director? Because you know you have to be careful about those things." And she says, "I did. And he told me to come and talk to you." So it became a Florida conference thing instead of this other conference who actually could have started it. So we started working together, and pretty soon her husband got really ill, so she had to drop out. And the other conference director was never available for conference calls. So we said, Florida conference is going to take this and run. So we did. And the logo here that we used was one that, and I don't know why it looks so bad. It must be the projector. Okay. So it's your fault? Yeah, okay.
Somebody keeps turning up the brightness.
Oh, okay. So the logo is one that Randy Fishel wrote for the conference because it was called a GoFish conference. And so we just added GoFish for Kids. He had dates and everything, and we took the dates off. We got permission, of course, to use it from Randy, and he says, "Yeah, go ahead." So we used this, and the actually, if you see it on my computer, it's a nicer looking logo than what it looks like up there. It actually, okay, thank you. So we started this GoFish for Kids, and we worked on it for a long time, and every single year we're making changes to it because we're learning things every year. And I'm glad that we're actually learning things every year, because if we weren't, why would we be doing this if we're not learning different ways to reach our kids? So I need to get my notes to make sure that I cover everything with you. So why can't we teach kids what we're learning? We can. We can put it on a kid level. And so your outline actually is for you to put notes in, and if you follow along with the outline, I hope to follow along with the outline too, so that you won't have to be looking where you're going to be going. So why can't we teach kids the same thing? And we can. And the things that we were learning there were very kid-friendly. We were learning puppetry. We were learning face painting. We were learning different things about nature. There were so many different things that we were learning. Yes, if anybody's just come in, take a handout plus a manual. Thank you. And so these are things that are kid-friendly. So we want to teach our kids things that are kid-friendly that they can teach to their friends and neighbors. Because there aren't very many Adventists who live in a real Adventist community. You live in a community with people from all over. And so you want to be able to reach these kids without going out and preaching to them. And that's a really big deal. Here's some pictures from the first GoFish for Kids that we did. And we did this at our camp. And we did a lot of not good planning, okay, and that's one of the things we learned. We did it at camp. We were charging because it cost us a fortune to put it on, and we're renting the camp. And they would have to pay our registration fee plus the room and board for the church, for the camp. So, and it happened right after Oshkosh. And so first of all, they'd spent their money. And secondly, they were exhausted from camporee. We had a group of 18 kids coming from the Washington, D.C. area. And they called me up like 3 days before. We just can't come. Brought kids home sick. They're tired. And oh my goodness, is this going to happen? Well, we ended up with taking all the people who couldn't come off the registration list. We ended up with about 15 kids registered. Oh, that was heartbreaking. We had put all this time into it and all this effort. And the presenters that you can see here, Oz and Wild from California, our nature guy from Florida. Darren was in Florida, then he moved to Georgia, but he's back in Florida now. And so we're paying all these people. And the only one that we weren't paying anything to was Florida Hospital. They came up and did the health part and gave the kids a whole bunch of stuff, and they wouldn't take any money for travel, honorarium, or anything. So that was really cool. But I said, oh, here we're going to have like 15 kids. But by the time we got started, we had 50. So where they came from, I don't know, because they hadn't registered, but I was welcoming them with open arms. So we learned one thing: don't use the camp. It's too expensive. You can't get these people here because they can't afford to come. They definitely couldn't pay board and room. So a lot of the people that came in that day were there just for that day, because we'd started with Vespers on Friday evening, and then we were going to have a closing program and all of this. So it was going to be a lot bigger weekend than we ended up eventually doing. So we had our 50 kids, and it was thrilling. As you can see from the pictures, we had some, well, maybe you can't, but you can see, we had some really, really good activities for the kids, and they had a blast. We taught them puppetry, and I don't know if you can see the puppet that he's holding over here. Every class that these kids went to, they took home a tool. And those puppets we got because Gene Oswald had a contact with a puppet maker, and they made these puppets special for us every single year at a reduced rate. And so that was really cool for us. Well, I retired May 1, and we switched our GoFish to doing it in October. And I'll tell you one of the reasons that we did that. And this year they changed the logo. They got a new banner. Isn't that gorgeous? Of course, it's more gorgeous there. But they changed the logo. And as we go through, you'll see some of the things that we had for the kids, and they've changed those too, because every year we're learning something new. And so what we started doing after that, the second year we actually used Florida Hospital Conference Center in their new tower. I don't know any of you that are familiar with Florida Hospital in Orlando. They built a 15-story tower, just an amazing building. And we were actually the first ones to reserve the conference center. And that's because my son was the project manager on that construction building. So, and he also was able to get us rent-free for that. We had to pay for meals, you know, because they catered our lunch and that sort of thing. So instead of doing a weekend, we did a day. And then we did the next day at a church. And that worked out much better. And we had also started with a parent track, so that we had kids in discipleship come in and do a parent track. And we had that the first year, we had it the second year. But the second year we didn't get, we had more parents wanting to go with their kids and see what the kids were learning instead of going to the parent track with kids in discipleship. So after the second year we didn't do kids in discipleship anymore, because the parents, it wasn't cost effective for us to bring down kids in discipleship and print all that material, and then the parents want to go and see what the kids are doing. So, and at that second one that we had at Florida Hospital, we had, which of course is in Orlando, that one was in Orlando, we had a pastor up in Jacksonville bring a carload of kids down, and he had, his two daughters are in it, but on their way home, they said, you know what, we're going to start a puppet ministry. And they did. They started a puppet ministry in a complex of, you know, poorer people, and they started doing that. And as far as I know, they're still continuing to do that. So that was really cool. That made the whole thing worth it. All the money that we'd lost, you know, it was worth it. So it's really been exciting. to see how this progresses. Now, these are pictures from this year, not this year's because it was October, this October one. And as you can see, it's got the new logo, and this is at one of the schools. And why schools? Because we started doing schools our third year. Because our second year, when we went to the church that was in South Florida, our attendance was so low, except we had one church bring a whole bunch of kids. But the church where we had our GoFish for Kids event sent one child. And this was a big church. And they had one child come. And the pastor said, well, I know all these kids that said they were coming. I guess they had something they thought would be better. So we're getting discouraged, but we can't stop. So we decided, let's do a 3-day weekend. We'll do a weekend, a Sabbath in a church, and when we do a church, we take over their church. We're there from 9 to 4. And we let them keep their beginner classroom, and we let them keep their sanctuary, but we take over the rest of it. And the only thing we require from that church is that they feed my staff. And there's about 12 of us when we do this. And we don't charge them anything, and we don't charge the kids. So we do this all for free as far as they're concerned, except for feeding my staff. So we go on Friday night, Friday afternoon, depending on where we're going to be, and we do our setup. And then we do the program on Sabbath, and then we break down, pack up the truck, the van, whatever it is we've got, drive to our second location, and set up so that we can start the next morning. And our second location can be either another church or a school. And we like to have it a school as a regular school day on a Sunday school day, because I think they do that like twice a year. So you've got a captive audience there because you've got the kids that have to go to school. So you get the school kids. And then what we do is we break down, we pack up, we go to our third location, which is a school day, 8 to 3. Now we're out of the 9 to 4 schedule, we're into 8 to 3. And we do 3 locations. It's a marathon weekend. We try to have no more than 2 hours between travel time between the events, between the different locations. So it's like, I'm not going to do it in Orlando and then travel to Miami because that's 4 hours. Because that takes us to the middle of the night. So what we've been doing is 3 locations. This year, it would be last October, they did 3 locations. They did a church location, and then they did 2 different schools. And actually we're seeing a lot more success by involving the schools. And the kids get excited, the teachers get excited, and they use these things that the kids have learned. And as I've mentioned, probably some of the things that we did, and some of the things we taught was nature. We have a naturalist who's actually a driver for FedEx, but he's a naturalist in my eyes. And he and his wife come and do the nature thing. And then after that, they rotate. Each class is an hour long. They rotate. We do puppetry, we do ballooning, we do face painting, we do storytelling, we do music, anything that will work in with the presenters that are able to help and what our schools want. And each class, they get a tool. In the puppetry class, they get a puppet. And let's see, these are some of the puppets that they gave out this last time. The youngest kids got these kind of puppets. Aren't they cute? So that's what the youngest kids got. And we were using, we'll back up. Those were the boxes we were using for the kids to collect all their stuff in. And in the boxes, before they'd get them, they'd be like the fisherman's cap. There would be a pencil, eraser, a pad of paper, and all that stuff would be in it. And then we put their names on it. The boxes would actually have a label. We just had to write the name on the label. And that's what they would get. And these were lunch boxes that cost me less than $1 a piece. And then as they got their stuff, they'd put them in there, except their puppets wouldn't fit in there. Their puppets, we had bags to put their puppets in, and they were taught how to take care of their puppets because they were really, really nice puppets that we were doing. And for the nature class, they'd get something in regard to nature that they could use, like a little net for fishing or catching tadpoles and stuff so that they could examine them. But the favorite thing was bug catchers. They loved the bug catchers, so they'd get a bug catcher or that. And we'd have handouts for every class so that the kids could take the knowledge, like the handout for using nature to teach about God. And this is some of the material from the puppetry one. There's a puppet skit that would be in there. They'd be taught how to take care of their puppets and how to handle the puppets and how to bring the puppets up instead of whoop, you know, and just drop them down. They'd learn how to walk them up and walk them down and how to do them right. Storytelling with face painting. They'd learn how to do the face painting. But it isn't just face painting. It's a story that you're telling the child as you're painting their face. So they get the material on that. And same thing on the ballooning. They'd get the balloon kit, and they'd also get the stories that they use to do their, use the balloons with. So those were some of the things that we did this last time. They consolidated everything into a booklet. So instead of getting all those sheets of paper, they get a booklet with their material in it. So those are some of the things that we've done. I've found it really exciting. The church I told you that they only had one kid from their church in this large church that came. One pastor brought a whole bunch of kids from his church, and one of the girls that came, she was actually new in their church. She wasn't a member. Her parents, her family wasn't. They all are now.
Amen.
So there are other simple things that you can use with these kids. Instead of spending, it cost us over $100 a child to do this, and we plan for 300 kids a year. So that was the biggest part of my budget. But there are some less expensive things that you can teach the kids. Any of you familiar with the EvangeCubes? Yes. Yeah, aren't those cool? It's a salvation story. This is the child's version. And it comes with the directions so you know what, for the kids know what to say. And another little thing is called the wordless book. Well, this is the wordless picture folder. It's the story of salvation. So those are other simple things that you can use. We did it on a conference level, but a church can do this on a smaller level. Actually, my church that we're just in the process of joining, since we were new to the Carolina Conference, we're just in the process of transferring our membership from our church in Florida. They went to we did this 2 weeks ago at Carolina Children's Conference, and they have already scheduled a GoFish for kids in one of the larger schools in the Hendersonville area. So I thought that was really cool. And that was just 2 weeks ago that they saw this, and they have decided that they're going to do it as a week of prayer. Now see, there's so many options you can use with this. They're going to use it as a week of prayer. So that instead of doing 5 one-hour sessions in a day, we're doing one one-hour session every day for 5 days as part of their week of prayer. And I think that was another thing that we learned, and that was somebody else's idea. You know what? We should do this instead. It would be a lot easier, and it would be a lot less expensive. So that's what they're doing. Now I wanted to back up here. That's good. If you take your manuals, it's got all kinds of ideas for you in here. This manual was started based on our GoFish for Kids in Florida, but done on a local church level rather than a conference level. So you can look at your book and see all kinds of different ideas, different places for resources and things. So it's got a lot of good information in here. And I was on the committee that did this, and it was a by phone only essentially committee. And what I thought was really cool, and I hadn't actually looked at this manual until about 3 weeks ago. I hadn't actually looked at the manual. because we've been doing our own thing, you know. So anyway, so I'm looking through the manually about 3 weeks ago, and host church checklist. Okay, what's the checklist? And I open it up. That's my checklist. They took my checklist and just consolidated it into, instead of a conference level, you know, like you don't have to rent a van, you don't have to do all of this stuff, because on mine, see, like this one, 2013, we did St. Pete, Naples, and Port Charlotte. Those are the 3 locations we were at. And on here, as you can see, this is what our needs are. This is when the needs are met. And if the needs aren't completely met, then I have them highlighted so that I know I've still got those things to do. And so it's to me, it was an easy way to keep track of what was going on. But there's a lot more things on here than there would be on a church, because I'm having to make hotel reservations for my staff and rent the van or reserve the conference van, whatever it is that we can use. But to me, it's the most exciting thing we've ever done. And I'm glad that Judy is continuing it on. She kind of had to, because I'd already reserved those 3 locations for last year. So, but they do plan on continuing it on, and I am so glad, because to me, it was one of the most successful things. It took us a while to get to the point that we felt like we were actually making a success. But we had kids come to the very first one that felt like, I can go to my home church and actually tell the children's story and feel confident in doing it. So it's a start. You know, so each year we're hearing more and more successful stories. I went to one school, and it was a Sunday school, and the principal calls me up about 2 weeks before and says, we're going to have to cancel. I says, you can't cancel. Well, you know, we've got the international fair that day. I says, this has been scheduled for a year. You said you'd be there. We can't cancel. What am I supposed to do with my people on a Sunday when I got a Sabbath and I've got a Monday? What am I supposed to do with them on Sunday? We will be there, and you will too. And so I called his pastor. My husband used to be ministerial director, so I knew most of the pastors. So I called his pastor and talked to his pastor. He says, don't worry about it. We'll have it. And we did. Well, the principal, at the beginning of the program, it was almost like, I don't even know why I'm here. You know, he was kind of sitting in the hallway, not really getting into it. And I'm thinking, this is really sad, because we've come here to do this service for his school, and he's not paying attention. Well, it was into the 2nd hour, and he comes up to me and he says, can you come back next year? Because this is so good. And I'm sorry, you've had your chance. You know, we've got all these schools and all these churches. We can't repeat you for many more years, because we got 250 churches, you know, and you can't do 1, 2 years in a row. But anyway, I felt good knowing that he saw the value of it finally. So the total goal of this is to teach your kids to go fish for kids, and that's what the thing is. So I think I've shown you what we've got in there. There's handouts for every class. You've got your guide, and it is strictly that. It's a guide. You can make changes any way you want to fit into your situation. If you want to do it for just to test it, to do it in a small school, or to do it with your Sabbath school kids, that's a great thing to do. Like, see, we jumped in with all our feet the first year and felt, you know, we had to pull back because we were dreaming so big the first time, and we didn't work ourselves into it. We had to gradually get into it. So, you know, we backed off and started doing things different. And all the discouragements have gone. We're happy with whatever. We have not had any trouble finding locations that are wanting us to come. The trouble is finding locations that are within a reasonable driving distance. So we have changed different presenters for various reasons. One of our puppeteers died, so we obviously could not use him anymore. So we, and actually that was an interesting thing, because I was at conference, it must have been the KidMin conference in Chicago, because I was in between, because I had 2 flights, and so I'm in between flights, and I get this text from the puppeteers. Were a team, and I get this text from Gene telling me we can't come because Carl is sick, and he's just been admitted to the hospital, and it doesn't look good. And it was a week out of GoFish for Kids. And the puppetry is a big thing. So I texted the one who does the face painting and the ballooning, and I said, this is the situation. I got this information from Gene, and this is what's happening to Carl. Can you help? Because he's a puppeteer too. And when I got off my second flight, and my phone started to act up, it started to beep and everything, and I pulled up, and there's a text back, no problem, we'll take care of it. Because his wife and his kids are also part of it. So they're a 4-person team, and they were able to split the tracks up. So that was a blessing. Satan tries every way to get us discouraged, but it hasn't worked yet. So if you've got any particular questions, I'll take some questions, and then if I think of something that I haven't told you, we'll do that.
How do we apply this in our churches?
Okay, well, what we're going to be doing in our church has a church school with 3 kids. And so what we're going to be doing is a person in our church actually works at the larger school in the area, and she asked them, we would like to do this as a week of prayer at your school, and this is what it's all about. And the principal said, well, we've got week of prayer scheduled for this time in the spring and this time in the fall. What would you like? We came back and we had a meeting the other day, and we said, because of the way we're trying to schedule children and family events, that we'd rather do it in the fall. So this September, we've got it scheduled to go into that school. It's got about 100 kids. So we're going to be doing 100 kids, but we're also backing up on some of the expenses. They're not going to get the expensive $40 a piece puppets. And we're going to be using local presenters so that we don't have to bring anybody in. Because they said, oh, well, I know this one who can do this, I know this one who can do that. And it's as we're listing off the different seminars we want to teach these kids, somebody says, well, I know somebody she makes her living in puppetry. And another one, oh, this one's a great face painter, and this one, that's what they do. They're balloonists. So everything was just kind of falling together. And the interesting thing was, we got everything filled except, now I live in the mountains of North Carolina. Nature. Oh, come on. Look at where you live. So we're still working on the nature, and we were thinking of asking the Western North Carolina Nature Center, because that's an amazing place, if they would have something. But since we have to have it from a Christian aspect, we're not sure where we're going to be able to make something there. But God will give us who we need. So it's just what your school or your church can afford to do, and go on that level. If you can't afford to put a lot of money into it, or you don't have donors, and we're actually stepping out in faith on this, because we don't at this point have donors, but God will send them. He always has. So for a small church, decide if you want to do this. What seminars do you want to teach the kids? How much is that going to cost you? How many kids? Are you going to use your school, or are you going to do a church? If it's for your Sabbath school kids, then you have, or your school, you know what kind of numbers, and that way you can figure out how many things. And there's a lot of places that you can go to get things. You can get puppets through Oriental Trading. You can actually get the same puppets at Oriental Trading that you can get on Amazon, and they're cheaper on Amazon, especially if you get Amazon Prime and you don't have to pay shipping. But they've got some puppets in Oriental Trading that they're people puppets, not animal puppets. Because I know a lot of people don't think it's a good idea for animals to pretend to talk. And so we're going to go with people puppets. So there's a lot of ways that you can save money. You can probably find donors that say, oh, sure, I'll give you $100 for, or I'll give you, I'll pay for, if we have to pay like the balloonists, I'll pay for the balloonists to come, or that sort of thing. I've gotten the pricing that we needed because I talked to Darren, who was our puppeteer here, about pricing because he sells this stuff. Give me some pricing on face painting kits. Give me some pricing on the ballooning kits. And I brought that to our meeting, and they're going to take it to the board and see where they're at. And they're also starting to contact people in the church. Would you like to donate $100 toward this GoFish for Kids? And actually, we don't have to pay the facility because it's a school. They're there for a school day. That's not going to cost us anything. And because it's a 1-hour program, 5 mornings a week, they don't have to feed us. So there's a lot of ways that you can cut down costs. And we don't have to rent a big van and pay hotel and gas and all that stuff to go from place to place. So to me, it's one of the best things because, you know, kids are going to listen to another kid before they're going to listen to an adult. And so I think that is vital, that we teach our kids how to do this. And some of the successes that we've seen from the kids that we've reached, by them reaching out to their friends, neighbors, or starting a ministry, there's so many things that make this, to me, much more evangelistic than an adult evangelistic series. Because that's another thing you could use it as, an evangelistic series. If your church is running one, run GoFish for Kids with that. Do something like one thing a night. Did you have a question?
Just for clarification, it may be a dumb question, but am I to understand that if we can't implement this ourselves, we have to bring a team in?
You can implement it yourself.
You can?
Oh yes, if you've got people that have these skills, or you know somebody, maybe you have a next door neighbor that does puppets, you know, bring him in to teach. Give him the material.
Program outline and
You can actually, if anybody wants to get the material from me as far as what we've had, and where did I put the ones that I just had out here? I guess I put them back in my bag. I can make a copy of the book. We don't own any copyrights on anything. And I can send you emails that give the stories for the ballooning, the stories for the face painting, and some of the puppet skits, and that sort of thing. Creative Arts Store is where I get my face painting and my ballooning stuff, but you might be able to find a vendor that's local to where you are that you could just go there and purchase things. You could do the puppets through Oriental Trading or Amazon because they're a little cheaper through Amazon.
So can we email a request for you to send us that?
Sure. You want my email address? Okay. My email address is childmin, CHILDMIN, Florida, although I no longer live in Florida, @gmail.com.
Florida spelled out?
It's totally spelled out, yes. Because I've had this email address for some time, and I'm not about to change it.
At Gmail?
At Gmail, yep. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do things with a lot less money than what we were putting into it.
But we can get a full team together to do this.
Oh, yeah, just pull a team together from your area, or maybe you've got a relative that you want them to come and spend the weekend with you so they can go fish for kids if they've got that kind of skill. There's so many ways that you can cut costs. Because this was a conference level thing, we wanted to have the best, and that's actually what we did. In fact, the one who took over for our puppeteer, who Actually, he died the last day of that weekend when he was supposed to be with us. And but the puppeteer and his family who took over are not Adventist, but they know us so well. They're the ones that do the puppets for the VBS. So if you went to the VBS workshop and you saw the clip with the puppets, that's Darren and his family. So they do the puppets and the face painting, and he does illusion and ballooning. He does all that stuff, and his wife and kids. So they work as a 4-person team. But he doesn't live in Georgia anymore. He's back in Florida. He lived here for a couple of years. He moved here when we needed him, and I had to pay him to bring him down there, but now he's back in Florida. So any other questions?
I'm still a little bit confused. How is this different from, I just ordered a GoFish VBS starter kit. Is this the same thing?
No, it's not, because that's a VBS thing, and this is specifically to teach kids these particular skills to go out and reach their neighbors. The GoFish VBS kit was kind of a takeoff on that, but it's not the same thing. But that's where it, because the original Children's Ministry Conference that we went to was entitled the GoFish Children's Ministry Conference. And since we wanted to teach kids, we became GoFish for Kids. So it's
Prime example though of kind of a really bad, confusing thing to do with have a GoFish VBS, and they
Right.
should've-
Yeah, well, the GoFish
serious lack of
VBS,
communication.
yeah, the GoFish VBS came after we started our GoFish for Kids. And
Seems to me it's yours then, but.
yeah, but we have no copyright on anything because we don't want this to be something that's a moneymaker for us. We want this to be something that people can go out and do, because that's what it's about. It's about reaching kids for Jesus. It's not about how much can I charge for that. So, but to me, it's the most exciting thing we do. And the kids, if you could see the kids, how excited they are. And we would have an opening session and we would have a closing session. But if you're doing like a week of prayer at school, you don't need that. In the opening session, there'd be some songs, and Darren would do some tricks and illusions and things. And the kids enjoyed that. And then we'd have the lunch break after the first couple of sessions. And they would come in so excited from their 2 sessions that they'd already had. They would be so excited. And the parents who were there preparing the meal for my staff they would get excited because their kids were excited. And then the parents who were taking their kids home would get excited. And then when the child says, "Can I tell a children's story? I just learned this cool thing to tell a children's story." And so it's exciting because you're getting the kids excited about teaching about Jesus. And that's the most amazing thing. So are there any other questions? I don't even know. We've still got time. So we got plenty of time for questions and comments, and because we've got, like I said, it's the most exciting thing we do. And I think if you do it once, you're going to be hooked, and you're going to want to do it again and again. And you're going to want to go to the church that's down the road or in the next town and say, "We did this. And wouldn't you like to share and do it? Maybe we can come to your church and we can share this and do this together." Because when we do a church, we usually invite the area churches at the same time. For our Sabbath event, when it's just a church, let's say like when we did the Naples church, we invited all the area Adventist churches to it. And we have an age limit. You have to be 5. And we actually go 5 to 13. And we had parents bringing in their infants hoping they could get all the props. Sorry. Your kid can't use this yet. So, but the kids would just get so excited because they were learning something and being given the tools to go and teach it.